In the prior video, we saw how to install the Google Chrome web browser on a Mac, and we did this primarily for the developer tools which are built into Chrome that aid in web development. In this tutorial, we'll take a brief look at the developer tools. We'll start by launching Chrome and accessing a website, let's say the Wikipedia page on HTML. Now, before we dive into the actual developer tools, let's take a look at a resource which is available in all web browsers, which will allow us to view the source of the HTML code the browser is using to render the web page. We can do this by right-clicking a blank area on the web page, then selecting the View Page Source option. And here's the HTML code which a developer wrote to display the content of the Wikipedia HTML page just as we were viewing it. This is a very useful tool in debugging your own web pages as you build them, but it also allows you to inspect the source of any page you're interested in to learn how developers implemented their solutions, and you can learn from that and implement the same features in your web pages. Now, this code is a bit difficult to read, so we can increase the font size by using the Command plus keys. That's a bit better to read, but the formatting isn't that great. To solve this issue, and many others which will help in your development along the way, Chrome offers browser extensions we can install to add to the default functionality of the browser developer tools. To format this code and make it easier to read, we'll install the Quick Source Viewer extension. To install the extensions, we'll start by clicking the three dots in the upper right hand corner of Chrome, then selecting More Tools and Extensions. On the Extensions page, click the hamburger menu item, scroll down to the bottom, and then click the link to open the Chrome Web Store. In the Chrome Web Store, we'll search for Quick Source Viewer and hit enter. And this first one, Quick Source Viewer, is what we're interested in, so we'll click it. And this is the Quick Source Viewer extension, which will format the source code of the page that we're viewing in a manner that's easier for us to read. Now you can see this is a fairly popular extension with over 20,000 users. I would just caution you when installing extensions in your browser to read the web page, see what the extension is all about, make sure that you're comfortable installing this into your browser. Now this has a pretty good user base. I've read through the overview and the information. I'm comfortable installing this in my web browser, so I'll click the Add to Chrome button. And we'll confirm that we want to add the extension. And it will go ahead and install it. Now we get a dialog that pops up here that says to use the extension, click this icon in the menu bar up here, and that will apply it to the source code that you're viewing. Oftentimes when you install extensions in Chrome, you need to restart the browser in order for the extension to be enabled. Here I've restarted Chrome and accessed the Wikipedia HTML page. Now to use the extension in order to view the source so it's easier to read, we could go up to the Extensions menu item and select Quick Source Viewer. And now we see the code in a much more readable manner. I realize the code itself doesn't mean a lot to you at this point in the series, but we will get there. We will cover HTML, we'll cover CSS, JavaScript, JSON, everything that you're seeing over here in the left-hand pane, and everything in the right will start to make sense as we progress through the series. But this plugin presents the code in a much easier manner to consume than the default view page source functionality built into the browser. Now let's close this tab and access the actual developer tools that are built into the browser. We'll start by clicking the three dots in the upper right hand corner, More Tools, and then selecting Developer Tools. And we see the Developer Tool console display on the right hand side of the page. We can increase the font size by using the Command and plus keys. As we progress through the tutorial series, we'll use the developer tools often. But right now I just want to show you a few key features. We can start by clicking this icon in the upper left of the developer pane console. What this allows us to do is move our mouse over any element in the page itself and see the properties of that element in the developer tools. For instance, I've hovered over the HTML5 image and selected it. This selected the code in the developer tool console, which is used to display that element. And we get certain bits of information. For example, the size of the image, the aspect ratio of the image, the current source where the image is being served from. We can see if we look inside of the code itself that there is an HTML table. And as we move over the code in the developer tools, we'll see the area of the web page being highlighted for which that code is applied to. Now, I realize we haven't covered the HTML syntax yet, but table should be self-explanatory. It's a table of rows and columns, just like you would think of a spreadsheet. So this particular table happens to hold all the content, which is displayed or highlighted on the left-hand page in the web page. So it has the information about the HTML markup. Inside of the table body, that's where the actual content is. So there's a table row, the TR, which has a TD, which is the cell, which has the code that we were just looking at for the HTML5 image. If we scroll down a little further in the developer console pane, we see we have another TR, so another row inside of the table. As we move our cursor over that on the left-hand side in the web page, we see the table row with the data for the file name extensions for HTML, which are .html and .htm. If we expand this code, right, then we'll see the actual content that's displayed inside of that table row. Another thing we could do is click the icon to the right of the source selector that we were just looking at, and this will toggle the device that we're using to view the page. Now, of course, I'm on a Mac desktop computer, so I was using a desktop browser. But what I can do is simulate accessing this page from a mobile device, let's say iPhone XR. And this gives me a simulated view of what the page would look like if I were to view that in an iPhone. And it doesn't seem to be much difference in the page itself as compared to the actual page in the browser. But for pages that are very dynamic, this could have a significant difference in layout. Here we see what this page would look like if I were to access it from an iPad mini. I could go back to the main view, which is responsive. So this is the responsive view for the browser on the desktop. And I can click this icon again to bring me back to my default view. Another useful feature in this particular view of the developer tools allows us to inspect the CSS, the styles that are applied to elements on the web page. So if I go down into the developer tools at the bottom and drag this pane up, this will show me some of the CSS styles that are implemented on the page. And again, I understand we haven't covered CSS yet. We'll get there, but I just want to give an introduction to the tools and the usefulness. So we saw how we can highlight different areas of the content on the page and see that HTML reflected in the right hand side in the developer tools, but we could also see the styles that are applied. So if I move my cursor over this hypertext markup language and click it, and you'll see these styles over on the right hand side in the developer tools change to reflect the styles that are applied to that particular text. For example, this hypertext markup language shows up as bold on the page, and we can see that font weight is applied to the B HTML element, and it gives it the font weight of bold. Right, there were other colors, other styles we can see as well, a background color, a color for the text, the font family and style that's applied to the elements, and so on as you scroll through this particular styles tab in the developer tools. We'll take a look at this more as we're writing our own HTML and our own CSS. But for now, right, feel free to go out, load up any web page that you happen to be interested in, go into the developer tools, and you can really just click anywhere, highlight that, and then see the HTML source and the styles that are applied to that element on the web page. Use it as a learning tool. The final feature I'd like to show in the developer tools right now is the network tab, and this will show you the traffic or the communication between your browser and the backend server that's serving the web page. It will show you all the content that is brought down from the server to your browser in order to render the page for your viewing. In order to get to that tab, we can click these arrows over here on the developer tools and find the network selection and click it. However, I'm going to show you how to change the layout of the developer tools. So if I click these three dots in the developer tool console, you'll see that on the dock side, you have several different viewing options. Right now, we're viewing the dock, the developer tools docked over to the right hand side of the page. If I select the icon to the left of that, which shows the dock at the bottom, it will move the dock, as you would expect, to the bottom of the page. And here we can scroll up and see a little bit more. On this particular view that we're in now, we're still inspecting the HTML elements. So we see the HTML on the left-hand side and the CSS, the styles, on the right. If I click the network tab, and again, let's bring this up a little bit. I'll click this button to clear the network console. And if I reload this page, we'll see the communication, like I said, between the browser and the server. So when I refresh this page, it's going to make a connection out to Wikipedia server to say, hey, I want you to show me the HTML page for HTML markup. So if I reload this, again, you can see it was rather quick, but it went out and it got the HTML file for the HTML page. It also went out and loaded some images that we want to see on the web page when it's displayed. So we have the HTML5 logo. If we keep scrolling down, right, we're going to see Tim Berners-Lee. But in addition to that, we've also loaded some style sheets, right? Some CSS, because this obviously has styling. So this is just a way to see the communication, the network traffic between your computer, the web browser on your computer, and the content that's being provided to your browser from the web server that you're accessing for the page that you're trying to view. We'll take a deeper dive, as I keep saying, into developer tools as we move forward, but I just wanted to, again, give you a brief introduction of what they offer you as a developer.